Once the Straw Hats made it to the Grand Line, it was explained that you use a log pose to get from island to island. So, logic would dictate that they must use the log pose to get to pretty much every island. And if not all, probably most. Well, I thought it'd be fun to go through and tally every island that they've been to. First, let's just quickly go through the East Blue stuff so that we really do get to all the islands. Of course, those won't use the log pose, but hey, might as well. We start on Dawn Island and then head to Goat Island in the manga to meet Kobe, but I feel like we shouldn't really count those because this is a list of islands the Straw Hat crew visited. There wasn't a crew until Kobe took him to Shell's Town, where the crew really started when Zoro joined. So let's start with that one. Then the island in the Oregon archipelago where Orange Town was, then the island of rare animals, Usopp's island in the Gecko Islands, Nami's islands in the Konomi Island, then the island in the Polestar Island where Log Town was located. Man, there sure are a lot of archipelagos in the East Blue, huh? Now, this is where things start getting interesting. From Log Town, we went to Reverse Mountain. Didn't really stop there, just kind of went up it, so I'm not going to count that as an island. It's not even an island anyways, it's part of the Red Line, but they didn't ever, leave the water, so hey. Then we got to Twin Cape, so I'll count that, where they obtained the log pose. Woo! Time to start really getting going with this list. Here we go. Whiskey Peak, good start. Little Garden, 2 for 2. But it would take a year for the pose to set, and they were in a bit of a hurry, so they used the Eternal Pose to Arabasta that they got there. So they left Little Garden following the Eternal Pose and got to Drum Island. They stopped there on their way to Arabasta after the crazy weather indicated that there was an island nearby, and Nami needed some help. Continuing to follow that Eternal Pose, they finally got to Arabasta. Okay, took care of that. Time to follow the regular pose again, right? Oh, why is it doing that? Better stop at Jai to figure it out before it resets, huh? And now, on to the third, Skypiea. Apparently I've been spelling that wrong for years. From Skypiea, they dropped straight down into G8, which was filler, but I'm tempted to include it because it's just about as universally as loved as the next one that actually did use the regular log pose. Long Ring Long Land. Which wasn't actually that bad. You know what? Let's give G8 a 100th of a point because why not? Boom! 2 to 3 in a row. On to Water 7. Now let's just get railroaded to Ennie's Lobby and back. No log pose there. Speaking of other modes of transportation, the next island was actually a boat from a different sea. So you can bet they didn't get there with a log pose. But I'm gonna count it as an island anyways because, look at it. Come on. Well, I guess nothing happened there, so I guess it deserves its own counter. Wait a minute. Now what's the log pose doing? Hey, look! The continent. Do you count that as an island? I'd say that's a really big ring-shaped island. Fine, another for the not an island islands. Speaking of, does this thing count? I'll give it a 1/10 of a not an island island point. Man, this is getting complicated. Keeping up the streak of not an island islands, an archipelago of trees. I'm still a bit confused about how everyone can so easily find this place. It's like a tourist destination. There can't be an eternal pose, because it's not an island. There's nothing that points to it. Otherwise, the Straw Hats log pose would have pointed to it instead of Fishman Island. But here we are. I guess just go towards Fishman Island and you'll eventually see it, because it's kind of in the same general area. Straw Hats couldn't see it from where they got to from. Words. Now, at this point, you may have figured out why I gave G8 a 100th rather than a 10th. It's time to split the party, guys! Luffy went to Amazon Lily. Man, another counter? I don't think the combat has the crazy magnetic thing going on, so I would imagine navigation would be normal. But I can't confirm, so boom, new counter. Impel Down, Marineford, Ruskaina. Zoro went to Kutargaina Island, and Nami went to Witheria, which was an artificial sky island, so I guess another not an island island. But then She visited who knows how many actual islands and where those actual islands were in the world. There weren't really borders for the weather wizards. They're just floating around wherever the wind takes them. Could have been anywhere. So I don't know where to put it. Now for Usopp, he went to the Bowen Archipelago. He must have had a charge, right? I mean, how else would Heracles' group have navigated there otherwise? It's weird. Plants. I mean, I guess it's possible that they, went from one island and there was a set, another Eternal Pose island that you could travel to and cross paths with it. I'm just gonna count that as an island, I think. Sanji went to Memorial Island. Chopper went out of the Grand Line into Torino Island, with the Torino Kingdom. Robin got launched to the East Blue, normal island again, Tequila Wolf, so I guess that's not, against the number of islands that they're going to. But then she went to Baltigo, most likely with an Eternal Pose, almost certainly with an Eternal Pose. So I guess she probably didn't land anywhere else, but she could have traveled around with the revolutionaries as well. Frankie went to Karakuri Island, and now this is Brooke's turn. Brooke went to Namakura Island, and then off to Kenzan Island, then a tour of the world. On that note, we don't know the paths everyone took back either. But however they did it, they probably most likely used Rayleigh's Viva card, so I'll just do that. And back to the log pose for Fishman Island! Woo! So that's it for Paradise. If Fishman Island counts as Paradise, I guess it should because it's the regular log pose. So, time for the new world. And with that, a fancy, new, shiny, weird kind of log pose. It's been a long time since they got this bad boy, so they must have used it so much. Let's go follow that pose. Hey, look. It's a volcano with none of the needles pointing to it. And a distress skull? Well, time for a quick detour to Punk Hazard, which led them to Dressrosa for many reasons, where they crossed a bridge to Greenbit before returning. And then they took a trip to a giant elephant, where Sanji was abducted, so the party split up again. And we follow Luffy first to Cacao Island, then Whole Cake Island, then Nuts Island, and back to Cacao Island. Some of them traveling between the islands via friggin' pocket dimension. But that wasn't the only pocket dimension, no, can't forget about Mr. Cheese's book world. And why not? Let's throw in the giant snails that make up Sanji's homeland for good measure. Okay, now it's time to head to Wano. We've been waiting for this for so long. And we still haven't used the New World log pose to get anywhere. I'm very tempted to count each region in Wano as its own island, because each has its own climate, and it was theorized at one point that they were 6 islands pulled together. But some information that we haven't gotten in the anime yet makes that kinda unlikely. Which also extends to Onigashima, and that's why I won't count that as its own island either. It was surrounded by water when they got there, let's count it. An island on a lake is still an island. So that's as far as we've gotten in the anime. Yeah, yes. Well, let's end this on a happy note. Egghead, woo, we got one! I really do think it's pretty funny that he made such a big deal about how important the log pose is. And if you ask pretty much anyone how you get around the Grand Line if you can't use compasses and stuff, they'll tell you you use a log pose. Any powerful power won't really be using the regular log poses. They probably all have eternal poses. It's a lot easier to get around.